My name is Simone Odoardi, and the title is Using AI Creatively and Ethically in Games, The Journey of Vaudeville. And there are like some explanation about this title. When I say AI, I mean like generative AI, conversational AI, not classic game AI. And Vaudeville is the game that I developed a couple of years ago. And I go back a bit to the word ethically because I realized directly after I submitted the talk it was probably a bit too much. So who am I? I was born in Italy. I'm based in Stockholm, Sweden. I'm the founder of a tiny indie studio called Bumblebee Studios, and since last summer also the head teacher for game programming Future Games Stockholm. I'm a general nerd about everything you can nerd about. Yes, so I mentioned the ethically expression, and that's what this is talk not about. We're not going to talk about legal aspects with AI. There are people more suited than me to do that. We're not going too deep into technical stuff, no algorithms. And the ethically, it's actually no ethic, it's just my opinions, my experience for being an early adopter of this technology. Oh, sorry, wrong direction. What we actually going to talk about is like my experience, how I've seen human interacting with the game and the technology, my opinions about the different tools, and I'll try to give you some inspiration and tips, both as I said, an early adopter of the generative AI in gaming and as an indie, self-published, self-funded indie developer. Yes, so this is Vaudeville. It's a game that I launched a couple of years ago, more or less in this period. It was directly after the Nordic Game 23, so we had a booth now where the other indies are now. And I realized like it's a detective game, and what's particular with the game is that none of the dialogues are scripted, but the characters are scripted and they generate dialogues in real time based on the script that they were given. And I realized I published a demo in February 2023 after roughly 4 months of development. This happened because I got in contact with this company called Inward AI. They had released like this solution to create character based on prompts. I started like testing their API, and I thought it worked great. So I was very impressed with the first result. Now we're talking about like it was very early, so in the AI wave, at least I didn't have any previous experience with AI. So when I saw the kind of dialogues they could generate, I was mind blown. So I said, okay, I want to be the first out there with such a game. So I just created very simple characters like this one and this with the character generator. I rigged them and put them, connected them to the Inward AI API, and just put the game out there for everybody to try with a demo. And the reactions were very positive. Like I saw even the negative reactions were amazing because people were really engaged, both independently of what they thought about the game itself. So I decided to be the first out there, and I was. I even beat Inward themselves with their demo. It was released after my game, and it was complete. I decided to go completely self-published, self-marketed, and I had two very like precise ideas. Is what I wanted to have strong characters, so I made every character with a very with a background, the determined background that they act differently and they talk differently and they have different knowledge about the situation that's happening in town. And then I have the idea of having an open gameplay, and that's because I really like games with transparent game mechanics when you know exactly what's going on. But at the same time, I really like games that completely hide them. This is the possibility that I saw with this behavior. Didn't want to have an UI. I didn't want to have a quest log or whatever, like things that hold in the player's hand. Just rough dialogues, and it was up to the player to connect the dots. And it was a win-win situation because it allowed me to have a much shortened development time, a much shortened testing time, and still build my vision. And I'm going to go back about that because it was like both good and bad. So the reception, I noticed until the beginning that it was something completely different for anything that I'd done before because it was priceless to see. I had a content creator campaign brought through Keymailer and Lurkit, and I reached out to different content creators, both like paid promotion and free promotion. And I realized like the interaction, watching the interaction, especially the first interaction was priceless because the moment that I realized the character were hearing them and they were responding to them, it was mind-blowing. So I made this collage of videos that I published on our YouTube, like people reacting, "Oh, he's hearing me." But it was first when this guy decided to play the game. I didn't pay him. I cannot afford it. So this is for those who don't know who it is. I didn't know who it was. I'm not into YouTubers or Twitchers or whatever, so I didn't know what this guy is. But he's 8 million people following him, and it's called Most Critical. And that's the other guy, Asanabi, and then we had Will Neff, Donkey, all within a couple of weeks. They were playing the games, like giving their opinion, also like political views about that because it's political issues as well. With the AI. So when these guys started playing the games, I was sitting on a night train through Germany, and when I checked the Discord server, which was quite silent until then, and suddenly I had like 100 people discussing the game, and I asked, what's going on? Oh, Charlie's playing your game, so who's Charlie? So they sent me a link, and I went in, there were like 1 million people watching the stream, and I was mind-blown. So directly after that, we had memes started appearing on TikTok, on the meme pages, so mostly because of mishearings of the AI. So we have we have this character called Monsieur Saxabar, which became Mr. Sexy Bar. So the memes also had a role in creating the popularity of the game. We had some awards coming in, best innovation and best PC game, and then we had a game development championship, second place for the cloud service. We were used as use case. We still use as use cases by Inward and Unity Asset Store for the AI tools. There have been academic papers have been interviewed by 4 or 5 at least researchers writing about this game. One researcher collected all the feedback for the reviews on Steam and made a study about that. And generally, the game was very polarizing, which also reflects on our Steam reviews, which we also see this increased expectation. We see that the curve here, it starts very positive, it gets more balanced, and in the end, there are a lot of negative reviews. And that's because it was very new back then, people were impressed. We are not really impressed by AI anymore. So yeah, it went down, but it's still there's still a lot of, and then of course we had the problem with the hallucination, which is the behavior of this conversational AI to make up their own facts. So even if we were careful about scripting and adding all the possible details, but and in a detective game, when you have to do your conclusion based on facts, it's very problematic when the AI started making out tags. So we worked a lot. We had other issues with the marketing, because after the initial push that we got from the influencer, it was hard to I was self-funded. Now we're three, by the way. So when I did this, I was all alone. So Bumblebee was a one-man company. And of course, we had like these technical issues with the provider. During a couple of situations, the service stopped working because they weren't expecting such a big load. We weren't expecting either. And it happened in the middle of the night in the USA. So it was also a very. I stayed up. So it was the middle of the night here. Yeah. So it was like a shortage of 5-6 hours in which we got a lot of negative reviews and a lot of refunds and unsatisfied users. So, and we also comes with a lack of control that we had on their platform, because suddenly they changed the algorithm and the characters start to behave very strangely. So, and the cost that correlated with the service. So later on, we decided to go, and we're going to talk about later, to build our offline solution. So that's what we've been doing during the 6 months directly after the release. I made like an update every week. So we introduced 12 languages, and of course, the languages are also translated in real time, since the dialogues are in real time. So we send the dialogues to a service called DeepL, and we get the dialogues translated back, and we put them and we sync them again. And that's also a cost, but it's a sustainable cost. We created new environments, so all the background environments we made new ones and improved. We added a new character, and we added also some progression, because I talked before about hiding the game mechanics, but there are a lot of people that really want the game mechanics. They felt like if we were just talking to the characters, nothing was happening. They wanted the feedback. They wanted to have like the update in the log. That was not happening, but we made a compromise. So we had like some location unlock based on the dialogues, while we kept the original one sandbox version in which you could talk freely to all. It was mostly for the influencers, so they could access all the characters at once. Memory persistence. In the first version, the characters could not remember the previous dialogues, which was very bad. So we added memory persistence, so that now they remember everything. We added battery UX and accessibility improvements and support for the Steam Deck, which is now Steam Deck verified. And the big step was which is still in beta, we added an offline version of the AI, and we did it through the use of Unity Santis and Llama CPP. We tried different solutions and tried different transformers and things that we found on Hugging Face. And this is how the model looks like now. So we have this input from either the keyboard or the text, the microphone, that we converted to text, and then we have the dialogue processing, and then we have the text to speech that goes to audio and goes to also transformed to voice sims, I guess it's pronounced, which drive the facial animations. At the same time, we analyze the text to see if we have to unlock something, and then this part is not really implemented, but we plan to check also the sentiment, so the tone of the conversation, to see how the body animation should be to change. And then, of course, in the speech to text, or speech recognition, we train the algorithm with the names and of the characters and the location in the game, just to avoid the Mr. Sexy Bar incident again. So we trained our algorithms to adapt them to the game. And this is now in a separate. It's live, on a separated beta branch on Steam. So we got actually very positive feedback from the users, except like the hardware problems, because like it's run locally, so it takes a lot of resources. But it works actually. They think that it works better than the inward one. Yeah. So my goals with using AI are like to mimic the human behavior in the gameplay, not during the creative process. So I don't want to replace human in the development. I still want to work with people. I still want to create content, and I still want to feel that what we do is our product. And it's pretty much what we do with the classic AI. We were using pathfinding, behavior trees, but this is more advanced, like goal-oriented action planning, fuzzy logic, but using instead like models trained on data. Or we don't have to mimic human behavior. You can just let the AI be an AI and be like a component of the game that decide the rules and transparently be an AI. Some example, like the open dialogues as we have in Vaudeville, computer vision that can analyze the scene and suggest the behavior of the AI. Simulate personality is also pretty much what we have here, but we can use it like in traitor games, or games that you want to have a simulated opponent in front of you. Advanced player input that we can use to have different inputs like visual or written or drawings, any kind of things that a user can put in and that the AI can analyze and interpret as an input. This is also very good for like accessibility. I got some enthusiasts like blind people that wrote to us because they thought it worked perfectly to play vaudeville just with the voice input. Of course, we can have real-time generation of content, not just how they look, how the content looks, but also how it behaves. So we can like decide to create some item, and we can also get the properties of this item, how they interact with the environment. And another usage that I think about is like negotiation in Civ-like games. Instead of just based on the deterministic parameters, you can have a more like lifelike interaction with other AI players. And there are endless way to use this, and this is all just some of the examples. And another way is RPGs. I mean, I love computer RPGs, but I always thought that the limitation of having like to choose between the 3-4 pre-scripted choices is what it doesn't make feel like playing with a dungeon master, and making the game like work. Having like those open dialogues can really like improve the quality of RPGs. So regarding the content creation, as I said, I was very enthusiastic about also the image creation and all the other things. You can't see the image here, but this is the map of Vaudeville, which was created with AI. Now I changed my mind a bit. I think I'm so bored with all the AI imagery. Just open your LinkedIn feed and you see all these AI images, AI texts. So we have a plan to remove all the images, AI-created images in the game in the future. But it's great, still great from prototyping. It's still great to create like sound effects. I guess it's one very good area to create. You can create your music or cube maps, also abstract cube maps in the same we used fractals before, or other procedural generation of backgrounds. Why not use the AI? But anything, whatever you do, of course, you cannot claim ownership. That's the. If you do music with an AI, you cannot say you did the soundtrack because you didn't. The AI did. Some final thoughts. yeah, so real-time content is the best way for me to use the real-time content, real-time input. We talk about emergent narrative, emergent gameplay. Now it's a buzzword within game design. And what's the best way to create emergent elements, if not like using AI as a tool? And of course, we have a bit of a different workflow when I implemented these elements. If we talk about Vaudeville, of course, we didn't have to write the dialogues, so we didn't need a dialogue writer. It was only me anyway, so I didn't have to write the dialogues. But in the end, I had to write the character, so I had to create a very deep background for any of them, put the knowledge inside the characters. So it's still narrative, it's still writing, but it's a different way of writing. So and I was very. This is like one user that made the characters in the Sims. So he created a mod with all the Vaudeville characters, and I took it as a proof that I managed to create very recognizable characters, both visually and behavior-wise. And another player had reverse engineered the game and analyzed all the characters, and was very impressed by how deep they were in their design. Yeah, so the plans for the future. I don't know how much time we have. The plans for the future. So now we had to take a break from Vaudeville, and it was very intense for a while. So I had to take a breather from that, and from AI based in general. But we're going to release a patch soon, just to fix the more severe bugs and problems. The game is still in early access, so the game Vaudeville sold 9,000 copies so far. We are still at 12,000 outstanding wish list. So we wanted to make the game better, to leave early access and try to attract also those 12,000 wish list that we waited to buy the game. In the meantime, so we're working with short-term projects, and we have a bigger, ambitious project for the future. So this is a game we call Summer. This is nothing to do with AI. This is like a classic tower defense that we released last week. It was born during a game jam, so it's very simple. But we're going to continue working on it. We released it very cheap, and we're going to build. We want to do a Vampire Survivors and then this project is called Interstate Cowboys. It started as the AI RPG that I talked to you before about. So I wanted to make this RPG with AI characters in which all the dialogues are open, so you can unlock new, instead of picking through choices, you can, in the same way as you talk to a dungeon master and unlock some lines in the story, so you can do the same through real-time dialogues. We're still evaluating if you want to do that. We have to do like a proof of concept to see if it works. We're being contacted by a Swedish legendary hip-hop group, Infinite Mass. They want to provide the soundtrack and be in the game. So we're working with them and trying to and it's going to be driving based. Yeah, that was all that I had for you. So you can get in touch with us if you're interested about hearing more. If you want us to help us make Interstate Cowboy happen, or if you, so this you can find this on all social media with Bumblebee Studios handle. If you want to reach out to me about any of our projects, you can contact me here, or the Future Games mail if you want to collaborate with the school. question.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, the microphone right
So as one of the challenges you mentioned, the control of the AI or lack of control. How did you approach that?
What we're doing is try to improve our prompts in order to make them respond more in the way we want. But it's a challenge. So that's why we still are in early access, because we don't feel at the moment that we achieved that goal. So yeah, that's challenging.
So is that a process of trial and error, essentially?
Yeah, yes, it is. And I'm not an AI expert, so I learn about training models, but I'm mostly like consumer of AI. So I thought it was interesting, but I never I know quite much about it now, but definitely not an expert in the AI field.
Reflecting back now that you can see it in hindsight, would you have still picked to do a mystery game, knowing like the dependence on facts, or would you have considered something like either comedy or leaning into AI hallucinations as a better way to approach that?
Yeah, probably commercially it would have been like easier to do it more comedical, so it would help meta jokes and unwanted jokes. So probably it would have helped the sales and prevented a lot of the critics, because it was like you could have made like a goat simulator with dialogues. Yeah, of course, but in hindsight. But I'm still happy that I chose to do this, because it was something that I had in mind, like this interactive clue game. So yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
One thing that I thought of when I saw this the first time is that, wow, there's so many possibilities that you could potentially do if this managed to at some point be tied to the gameplay.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, it hallucinates about what it thinks it can do, but do you think there's a possibility for it to at some point tie that into, let's say, I ask the AI, can you please open the door for me? And it walking over and actually doing that.
Yeah, that's already possible. Yeah, but it's still subject to hallucinations and misunderstanding. But the activates some behavior based on the vocal commands that are definitely already possible, and something that we are exploring as well. Yes. Okay. Then I guess we're done. Thank you.